Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Thursday, June 1st, 2017 edition of VR News. Can't believe it's June already. Time-wise, probably a week or two away from just full YouTube focus, so I'm super excited. Let's jump right into the news. Bunch of games to talk about, which we'll get into more detail on the gaming recap show. But let's talk about Mage's Tale first. It's going to launch June 20th, and it was just a few months ago that they talked about having a VR game, and here we are almost at launch. Super stoked about that. It's even got a pre-order discount. Now, I'm going to mention up front, I am a little biased, right? Huge In Exile, Brian Fargo fan. Wasteland 2 collector's box. Sealed game box. And the Tides of Numenera Collector's Edition. All pretty obvious signs that I'm biased. So I'm going to get that out right up front. So take what I say with a grain of salt. But he's never let me down, Brian Fargo. And I firmly believe that 2012 Kickstarter of his has brought the market to being friendly and open to turn-based CRPGs, right? On the JRPG side with handhelds, they never really went away. On the PC side, they did. Predominantly, there were indie games still, but predominantly for the big publishers, it was real-time. The Witcher series, Skyrim, Gothic, etc. So really nice to see the domino effect of what In Exile has done. And games like Divinity Original Sin, for example, directly because of that, and another great CRPG. So Mage's Tale, unfortunately, an exclusive. It's a Rift exclusive. Hopefully it launches beyond that at some point and is Revive friendly. We'll know closer to launch, I'm sure. So it's going to not only take place in the Bard's Tale universe, but time-wise, chronologically, between Bard's Tale 3 and the upcoming 4, which is also from In Exile Studios. So really excited about that. As you can tell, you play a mage. There's 11 dungeon levels and probably, according to them, 10 plus hours of playtime. So hour a level, I guess, is how you could look at that. $39.99 US with a pre-order discount of 10%. You take about $4 off of that. Might handle, cover the cost of something else that you want to buy. So there you go. That's Mage's Tale, June 20th for the Oculus Rift. Next up, a game that is not an exclusive, and it's Form HTC Vive. Initially, it's then going to be released for the Rift, and later this year for the PlayStation VR as well. It's a puzzler, decent price, $14.99. That's the discounted price until June 8th. Then it goes back to its normal price, which is going to be $19.99 US. So the game casts you as Dr. Devon Ellie. You're a physicist, remote Alaska facility, ancient alien artifact. A little cliched there, but you know what? Not much is original anymore. I just hope the gameplay's fun. If it's anywhere near the fun I had with Portal VR, sign me up. Third game to talk about, and again, going to go into more details on these on the recap video, Gunheart, which looks a lot like, the article points this out, and it really does if you look at the trailer, looks a lot like Borderlands, which is easily one of my favorite RPG light action shooter games for the PC. So looking forward to that. All major platforms supported, Rift, Vive, and PlayStation VR. All right, first non-gaming news story. Sega opening up one of the levels of the VR arcade that we talked about months ago. This, of course, at their Tokyo facility. And what I love about the Japanese VR arcades is the theme, the way they set them up, right? North American, European, and Chinese VR arcades, for the most part, pretty damn sterile, right? It's a bunch of space and set up, Vive or Rift kiosk, and that's it. In Japan, they are going whole hog. There's themed levels. They look futuristic. In short, they look awesome. And I guess the closest thing we're going to get here North America is probably the IMAX VR experience centers. So yeah, if you are in Tokyo, visiting, living, whatever, check this out. It's basically going to be open very soon. No word on what headsets are going to be used. Speculation, probably HTC Vive or StriVR, something like that. And the reason I think that the Vive is the leading candidate is because of the room scale. If you remember the design pictures we put up when we first talked about it, it's a very spacious facility. So to just go seated or more complicated setups with the Rift, I know it's marginal, but again, for commercial, the Vive is pretty damn simple to set up. So I wouldn't blame them for going that way at all. But yeah, that is opening shortly. Also, no word on the type of games or experiences that are going to open with it. So hopefully we find out as we get closer. Next news story, Walmart and StriVR, a company we haven't heard about for a lot of months now, partnering to offer training for 150,000 Walmart employees. And it's basically going to be a kiosk where they can train to deal with all kinds of different scenarios. You know, your typical irate customers. 30 seconds to 5 minutes is kind of what they're targeting. Customer service, management, specific encounters, the madness and lunacy that is Black Friday, for example, all of that. And what I love most about this story isn't that. That's pretty cool. But where they got the idea from, right? We've talked about marketing. We've always maintained on the channel and most of you in the comments that the best marketing is hands-on. Well, some Walmart execs happened to be at the University of Arkansas, watched the football team train, checked it out, and were immediately sold. And you know what? I would put that firmly into the category of word of mouth, one of the oldest forms of marketing. So very, very cool. Eventually, they hope to be rolling it out to all 5,000 retail locations. Awesome. Next news story, Matterport has a new camera, the Pro 2. It's about $500 cheaper than their original camera, which was $4,500. So this one coming in at about $4,000 US. 134 megapixel 3D camera. They're adding stuff like 2D image, 3D scanning. Pretty powerful what this is going to be able to do. Definitely targeting the commercial market. And of course, you couldn't escape the tech news of Intel's answer to Ryzen, which we talked about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I guess, more accurately. Well, now we get Intel's response with their Extreme series. And listen to this beast. So their Core i9 7980XE, it's priced at about $2,000 US. This thing ain't cheap, but it's meant to compete with AMD's, and I love this name, Threadripper. That thing just, it sounds beastly, right? 18 cores on this i9, 36 threads. That is in server CPU territory, right? Xeons, they come in those configurations. That's the only area I've ever worked with that many cores is servers. So where does the VR performance come in? Well, we know that the i7 does an awesome job compared to the i5 and i3 in improving the experience. This is just the Intel side, right? I've talked about AMD in other episodes. But for Intel, if you're an Intel person or that's what you're using, you are going to notice an improvement. With the same GPU card, going from an i5 to an i7, there's definitely a bump up in smoothness. Latency is assisted, a bunch of different areas. So question is, you're going to shell out $2,000, and we still don't know exactly what the benefits are going to be. That'll all be, discovered over the next few weeks and months as the benchmarks come out. Right now, we've got a handful, Cinebench being one of them. Anyone who's watched videos here for a while knows kind of my feelings on Cinebench, basically summed up as don't base your purchase on Cinebench benchmarks. Enough said. All right. Next story. Microsoft revealing their motion controllers for the Windows VR mixed reality headsets. And you're probably thinking, wow, that was weeks ago, Epix. Yes, and I said I wasn't going to go further back, but I wanted to talk about this one. I think it's important for a couple of reasons. The first is it's a controller. It's a tracked 6-degree of freedom controller. We don't know much more about it, but I do have a concern, and when this thing actually gets released or closer, we should be able to either substantiate the fear or dismiss it. And the fear comes down to tracking. We're using inside-out tracking. Those controllers have to be visible to the HMD, right? So what happens if you're doing that, for example? Is that going to create occlusion, right? Where you lose tracking? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Hopefully we find out soon. Price-wise, pretty damn good. $400 bundled in, that's $400 US, with Acer's HMD. It's about $200 less than the Rift, and even more compared to the Vive. But how fast is this going to be? How good are the experiences? There are a hell of a lot of questions. We need to answer those first to really get an idea of, is that $200 good? Or is the experience, so subpar to what we expected that it's not enough of a gap? We're going to have to wait and find out. Last news story for this Thursday, Mozilla bringing VR via Web VR to all Firefox users come August 8th with their Firefox 55 update. They also used that announcement as an opportunity to basically reach out to developers to encourage them to develop for Web VR using the A-Frame SDK. So be interesting to see how Web VR evolves. Once it's out there, what are we going to expect from it, right? There's so much potential for websites. Is this going to be a slow thing, or are we going to just see subsets of commercial sites using it? Can't wait to find out. I'm excited about Web VR and the other types of Web VR, like Google has their own version with Chrome, etc. All right, that is it for the news for this Thursday, guys, and the first day in June. Hope you guys are having a good week. Cheers.